baby rabbit.
Hello, Hidden Well farmers. Glad to see you. It is a crisp spring evening here at HopLow Rabbitry, and we've made a few improvements to our rabbit barn. Of course, we've shown you our nesting boxes, which are we've got babies in one of them already, and we got a couple of nests that are being built. So I'm very excited about that. But I told you that we was going to get rid of those old buck cages that we had that were really dilapidated, and so we actually hung some much better buck cages. So this is kind of like going from the local rundown $25 a night hotel up to the $39.99 motel room per night, but it is most certainly a major upgrade. They are cleaner. They have a little bit more room, and you can't. Of course, we have to leave a space between them so that they don't fight. But also, you can't take the male to the female. The female will kill them, beat them up really bad. You have to take the female to the male. So this is their space. Come on in, and we got to clean all this up, and we've been working on that. My wheelbarrow has a flat. But we've got some butt cages hung over here as well, and so we've got that set up, and very happy to have that upgrade going on. But it being dark here at Hidwell, I think right now it's close to 10:30. It reminded me of a story, and I may have told this story before in a different format. I can't remember, but the other night I was out here and I got to thinking about this. But we had a fella, his name was Keep, his last name was Keep, and he was a pastor. Well, he never pastored while he was here. He was working in other forms of ministry, but he had been a pastor. I believe he was Anglican or Episcopalian. It's not important, I guess. But he had a little farm, and he had some kids, and he called me one night. I know it was on a Sunday night. We had come home from church, and I was a little bit tired. And it was about 10:30, and he said, "Keaton, I need you to come to my farm right now." I was much younger, and I was still doing a lot of farm calls back then, ill-advisedly, because I didn't have a lot of equipment. I just didn't have a lot enough of anything. And what made it worse is Pastor Keep didn't have any equipment. He had nothing. And they had gotten this pony, this older pony, and I guess it weighed probably around 400 pounds, maybe 500 pounds. But he called me in the middle of the night and said, "Our pony has fallen, and we need you to come help us." Well, from my house in Corbin to Pastor Keep's house was an hour and a half in one direction. I lived on the edge of one county, and he lived on the edge of another county. So reluctantly, and again, you want to help people and all that kind of stuff, but reluctantly, I got up and I took off, and I got all the stuff ready, and I got in my truck and I drove all the way to his farm, and he met me out there, and gosh, by now it was at least midnight. And when I got there, him and his boys were out, and they had stuff, and they were doing things. But the horse was nowhere to be found, and they seemed very disinterested in this horse. They had basically just decided there's nothing they could do, and they were just going to wait on me to get there. So when I got there and saw this scene, he said, "We have to go down through the woods." And I'm talking like thick secondary bush growth type of woods. And we got all the way down there, And when he said the horse had taken a fall, what he meant was the horse, the pony, had fallen off of a cliff. And I almost walked off of this cliff, and he grabbed me and pulled me back, and he shone some flashlights down, and this horse had fallen off of this cliff, and it was laying literally like 60 foot down this cliff on a whole nother level of the farm. And I looked at him exasperated and said, what do you want me to do? He says, I want you to help my horse. So I had some rope on my truck, and he had some rope and stuff. And so with everything in me, I tied it to a tree, and I shimmied myself all the way down to this horse. And the horse was laying there. It was still alive. It was just barely breathing. And it was doing all of these things. And it just, even though it was in distress, it was pretty stable. And of course, all of these kids are there, and he's wanting me to help the horse. So we get axes and chainsaws out, and we cut a path to the cliff, and we hook all of these chains and stuff up, and he backs his little tractor up in there, and I go down, and we slowly tie this horse's feet, and I get some stuff under it, and we start going up the mountain, and we get about halfway up, and it rolls back down. So we try again, and the horse, is under stress. I go ahead and I sedated the horse. I gave it some sedatives and some pain medicine. And, despite the best efforts, somebody's going to get killed. We're talking like pitch black Kentucky type situation, and somebody's going to get killed. And so I just told him, I was like, I'm just going to have to euthanize a horse. Well, this is where things really take a turn for the strange, because he then says, well, we could just take that other road and come up to the horse if you wanted to, if that would make it easier. I'm like, I just spent an hour of my life trying to haul this horse up the mountain, and there's a road that we could get to the horse? But obviously we had to drive through somebody else's property, and he was concerned about that. But we did it. We went around, and we were able to get and actually drag the horse out into the open. I couldn't get the horse up. And I don't know if it was because of the injuries or because of the sedation, but I want to think a lot of it was a combination of both and shock. And so he had a flatbed trailer, and I just had my truck. And he asked me if I could take the horse back to my shop. Well, I don't have a large animal facility at my place, but I did have a garage. And it being a pony, and again, all of those kids being there, I was like, well, if we can get him secure on this trailer, I'll haul him to my practice, I'll hook him up to an IV, and I'll give him some medication. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning now. And believe it or not, we dragged this horse up onto this little flatbed trailer. It was only like 2 foot off the ground. And we used some ramps, and we manhandling got him up there, and I tied him down on the trailer like a carcass, I guess. I don't even know how he tied him. And I waved goodbye, and I got in my truck, and I started driving back to London. I'm thinking in my mind, how am I going to treat this horse? I'm not thinking about the horse being on the trailer. I'm not thinking about there being no sides or top or anything on this horse. I'm thinking about how I'm going to treat this horse alone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired, and how I'm going to secure it. And I've got all these things. And as I approach London, when you come off of 229 and you're just coming in London, there's these railroad tracks. And I got to those railroad tracks, and I slowed way down, and I started going over them. About the time I got on the other side of those railroad tracks, I heard this noise like an earthquake, and it shook my truck in every direction. And heard this flop and this boom. So I put on my brakes, and I jump out of literally in the middle of the road, in the middle of London at 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank gosh there's no traffic. Just thank goodness. And that horse had gotten up and jumped off the trailer. And it's just standing there in the middle of the road with ropes hanging off of it. But it's off. So I don't know how in the world I'm going to get this horse back on a flatbed trailer. So I make a makeshift halter out of this thing, and I basically tie it to the back of the truck and just go real slow, and the horse follows me pulling with the truck another 2.5 miles to the clinic. We finally get to the clinic, and I walk it into my garage. So now I have a horse who's not contained, fully awake, can do anything he wants, walking around free in my garage. That IV and everything I put in him was a waste of time because he ripped everything out I put in. So about 5 o'clock in the morning, I finally just tied him to a little pole that I had there in the garage, and I come home. And the next day I come in, and I'd brought some hay, and I gave to him things eating, and everything seems fine. And Brother Keep calls me and asks me how the horse is doing. Of course, I told him it's doing fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And they come to get it, but they don't have a trailer, except for that flatbed trailer. And they rigged up some boards and some things, and he come and he got it and he took it home. And that poor little horse never looked back. I mean, it did just fine. But I'll never forget that horse jumping off of my trailer at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of London, standing there looking at me. And man, what an adventure. But anyway, God bless from Hidden Well, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you later.